play was once dead. Now it might be the most exciting play in sports. How does that impact the Texans? Could it eliminate one of the biggest problems in Houston? We'll hear from DeMeco Ryans. We'll talk about the irony, and we'll talk about how one play could impact all of the excitement that the Houston Texans have heading into the season. Let's go inside the locker room.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localized. Every angle's what we really do. We
The new kickoff rules. It's going to make the NFL extremely exciting. It's going to make a play that was once a dead play. The return rate in the NFL last year was actually 22%. Only 22% of kicks in the NFL were returned, and the touchback was pretty much inevitable to the point where it was the bathroom break in the NFL was basically extended if you were at games. You didn't really need to watch the kickoff, and the average starting field position in the XFL was around the 30-yard line. In the NFL, it was around the 25. There's some good news. There's some bad news when it comes to this kickoff rule, how it impacts the Texans. I also think it could eliminate one of the biggest knocks on the Houston sports fan. We'll get into all that. But first, let's hear from DeMeco Ryans, and we'll get into the rules themselves. But let's hear what DeMeco Ryans, head coach of Houston Texans, had to say about these new kickoff rules.
Yeah, what we've been experiencing with the new kickoff rule, it's going to be new for everyone, right? And I think the fans will see it'll be exciting. You're actually going to get actual kickoff. You're going to get a play, and I think that was the biggest thing of putting the kickoff back in. No more fair catch, right? So you're going to force a returner to run the ball. The distance is shorter, so guys, aren't picking up as much speed when it comes to the kickoff team. So those blocks are going to happen very quickly. It's going to be in a short area. So guys got the win with quickness, right? And I think you're going to see a lot of plays made on the edge of the kickoff and kickoff return, where I've seen it where the kickoff returner is really, it's going to be like a 3-on-3 type of game where you have three blockers, all right, three defenders trying to make a play. And if the returner is quick enough, fast enough, he probably split. So you'll see a lot of plays being made on the kickoff team and the kickoff return team this year.
Yeah, there's going to be a hell of a lot of plays made on the kickoff team, and it's going to turn this play that was once kind of mocked into one of the most exciting plays in all of the NFL. The specific rules are as follows, and a lot of us are going to be learning on the go, unless you're like a big XFL fan, which I'm not. NFL, college football. For me, not trying to be a hardo, that's just kind of where it's at. But the kickoff is going to take place from the same spot. So the kickoff is going to be at the 35-yard line. The coverage team is actually going to be in the opposing territory at the 40. The blockers on the return team, they can be between the 30 and 35. So you're going to have the coverage team on the 35, on the 40. You're going to have the blockers on the 30, 35, 9 guys on the line. And they can't move until the ball is touched or the ball hits the ground. Now, there's a landing zone from the 20 to the end zone. It has to land in front of the end zone. Now, if it lands in the end zone, it's a touchback. So that would put the ball at the 35-yard line. Now, if it doesn't even land in the landing zone, then the ball goes to the 40-yard line. If it rolls into the end zone, and this is going to be a lot, we're all going to be learning on the go. Fortunately for us, the first look at these new rules in the NFL are going to be in the Hall of Fame game on August 1st in Ohio. So we'll get a look at it. But if it rolls into the end zone, then it's a traditional touchback. It goes to the 20. So not in the landing zone, which is the 20 back to the goal line. It goes to the 40, a traditional touchback. Instead of going to the 25, it goes to the 35. And if it rolls in there, it goes to the 20. And then we'll figure out all the other rules, et cetera. You have to declare onside kicks. You can only do them in the fourth quarter. And there are some good news and there's some bad news when it comes to the Houston Texans and how this impacts them. We'll start with the good. Are you a start with the good news or you start with the bad news guy? Do you want to start with the good news or do you want to start with the bad? That's really the the question. We'll start with the good. We'll be positive. Everybody's feeling pretty good. Training camp's about to happen. The good news is you have one of the best special teams coaches in the game in Frank Ross, friend of the show. We talked to him a few times last year. I actually kind of felt sorry for him when the kickoff was becoming less and less relevant. I thought he was going to cry. But now you have a guy. The Texans have been in the top 3 of DVOA as special teams ever since Frank Ross has been there. So you have a guy who's capable of coaching. Now, there's an equal playing field. So everybody is going to be teaching this at the same time. But for my money, I'm not going to pretend to be able to know every special teams coach in the league. I just know what the people who do follow every special teams coach in the league say, and that's that Frank Ross is great at his job, and the numbers back that up. So that's the good news for the Texans. You have an awesome special teams coach in Frank Ross. We'll talk about how one of the biggest problems with Texans fans could be eliminated with this as well. But first, let's go listen to what the Super Bowl champs have to say, because I do think there's some bad news when it comes to the Texans that we'll get to in a second. But let's hear what the Super Bowl champs have to say and how they're going to approach this role. And it's kind of connected to the Texans and a former Texan, Justin Reid. We remember Justin Reid getting to kick field goals in preseason games. In fact, I actually tracked down an old video from my Twitter at Landry Locker of Justin Reid just messing around, kicking on the net. You can see him right there. He's just messing around. It's preseason. I think this was against the Cowboys back in 2021. You see him kicking kind of a bit at the time. And it was kind of like, oh, okay, Justin Reid just kind of messing around, doing his thing. Well, that's kind of changed now, because now you're in a situation where Justin Reid, he's actually kicked in some games. And with these new kickoff rules, there's a lot of involvement with the kicker. Dave Taub of the Kansas City Chiefs, their special teams coach, he went in depth on this. We haven't had Frank Ross at the podium, but this is what Dave Taub had to say. And we could actually see something that was at once kind of a bit here with Justin Reid. It could be taking place when it matters most. Here's Dave Taub talking about the new kickoff rules and why Justin Reid, the former Texan, might actually be kicking off for the Kansas City Chiefs.
I like to have somebody that can go back, is able to make a tackle. I mean, Bucker is able to make a tackle, but I really don't want him making tackles all year long. If you watch the XFL, we watched every play. I bet kickers were involved in probably at least 25 to 40% of the
40% of the tackles, kickers involved.
Tackles, either trying to make a guy bounce back or making the tackle itself or just missing the tackle. So, we don't want Bucker in that situation. But he will be a kicker. He'll be a guy that we will use in certain situations. He's got a lot of ability to move the ball, whereas those other guys may not be as, apt to doing that. And, we'll use him. He can still kick a touchback if we need it.
Which
goes to the 35. If we do kick a touchback,
goes to the 35.
Now they're getting up to 30 instead of the 25. So that 30. 5 yards makes a big difference. I mean, that's another 3% chance that, you're giving the offense against you to score. So.
And that's going to be interesting to see how the Chiefs approach that. Now, here's the bad news when it comes to the Texans. You just heard him say that kickers were involved in, one of every 4 or 40% of the kicks. The bad news is kickers are now in harm's way. And this is kind of an underrated aspect of Ka'imi Fairbairn. I love Ka'imi Fairbairn. He's obviously the best kicker in Texans history. We saw what life was like without him last year. It sucked. But every once in a while, Fairbairn, whether it's a soft tissue or whatever, he'll appear in the injury report. And we saw what life was like without him. You damn sure don't want him being involved in tackles. In fact, Ka'imi Fairbairn in the last 3 years, he's missed 9+ games. And the reason I put that plus is because a lot of times when you list games missed, you don't factor in, well, this guy left the game early. And that's just as bad as a missed game. It's actually worse if you think about it, because you're not prepared. You don't have the roster spot, and sometimes you're shorthanded, which is what happened last year when Ka'imi Fairbairn left the Tampa Bay game. You had Dare Agumbawale kicking off and kicking field goals. And maybe he is a guy who the Texans decide can kick off. But again, if you shank it and you don't get it in that landing zone. And a lot of times I think the ball was bouncing before the 20. If you shank it, then they're getting the ball at the 40. And they're very close to field position. And Justin Reed is obviously a little bit better kicker than Dare. So what do the Texans do? Because this is very concerning. I think this was concerning had they had the old rules, because 9 games in 3 years is a lot. And Ka'imi Fairbairn's not getting any younger. So this is a little bit of a concern. It's kind of a nobody's talking about when it comes to Ka'imi Fairbairn, but I think this is something to keep an eye on. So the good news, you got Frank Ross. The bad news, Fairbairn's going to have to make more plays, and he's already missed 9+ games in the last few years. Other question with the Houston Texans, before we get into how this could eliminate one of the biggest knocks on Houston football fandom, who returns kicks? I really, from a strategic standpoint, I know we saw Dameon Pierce last year kind of revive his season. He had the kickoff return against the Browns that cut the lead to 7. That could have been a big momentum swing in the regular season game. However, the Browns kind of ran away with it. Does Dameon Pierce fit that? Furthermore, if Dameon Pierce is as prepared to be the number 2 running back as DeMeco Ryans and Bobby Slowick say he is that something that you want to do? Could it be Steven Sims? That's going to be one of the interesting things when we're at camp in a few weeks, just to see who's getting the opportunity to return these kicks. Who is it going to be? What is that going to look like? This is going to be something that they're going to be paying a hell of a lot of attention to in preseason. It's just one of many questions. But I'm excited for these new rules. I think it's going to be really, really cool. Might be the most exciting play in sports now in a league that is by far the top league in the country. And now they've taken a play that was one of the most boring and they've made it one of the most intriguing and exciting plays. And I think that kind of might eliminate one of the knocks on Houston fandom. Shout out to all the Houston Texans fans, whether you're someone who hung around during the dark days of recent, or whether you're someone who is right back in the mix. One of the biggest knocks, even when Houston fandom is at its all-time high and everyone's feeling good about themselves, is we kind of arrive late to games. Whether it's traffic, whether it's just the speed in which we move, we kind of arrive late during games. And you factor in that the kickoff is boring and you don't need to see anything. No longer the case. You're excited about the Houston Texans. You're excited about this play. So maybe the biggest knock on Houston fandom, late arrivals, maybe that's eliminated by these new kickoff rules. Another nobody's talking about. Let me know what you think about the new kickoff rules. It's going to impact the game in many, many ways, especially with the Houston Texans. It'll be interesting to see what they do, what they attempt to do, how they handle it, how Fairbairn handles it. Hell, he's going to have to change the way he even kicks. And when you're talking soft tissue, and I don't know. This is going to be wild. I'm excited. Already excited about the season. This just adds a whole new element. Let me know what you think. Subscribe, like, ride along. Training camp is approaching. We got a lot of stuff lined up for the season. The content is going to keep coming through. So be sure to ride along. And always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, whether we got the old kickoff rules, whether we got the new kickoff rules, when it comes to that, we're all in it together. Thanks for coming through.
We the pulse of the city too. Landlocked, got the game in the headlock. Localized every time, can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we not 2. Plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days, opinions to give, we got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up. We number 1. You don't need to try your luck.